But when you change economic mechanism and you change people incentives, then even people who are not very good morally can do good things and can do something valuable for society.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sume McPhail. I'm the founder and CEO of WEquil School, a project-based, self-directed virtual learning platform. Our students present their projects every Saturday at 2 p.m. For more information, please go to wequil.school. This week's demo day is on economics, and we have our guest speaker, Ilya Rakovsky, PhD in economics, to comment on projects and to comment on his thoughts on economics. So the first presenter that we have today is, I will be sharing about what economics is and a few basic things you should know about it. When people generally think about economics, they think about the economy, GDP, money, stock prices, but when it comes down to it, economics is really just the study of people and choices. So every single second of the day, you are using economics because you are making choices. When you make a choice, you're making a choice to do whatever you are doing at any given moment. There are the two most important assumptions that make up economics are people have unlimited wants and we don't have unlimited resources. This creates scarcity, which means we must make a choice about what to do and what things such as which products we should focus on producing and things such as that, because we don't have unlimited resources. One thing that economics is important to understand is incentives. Incentives are things that encourage people to do certain things, and this can have very great effects. So things such as policies, if you don't have the right incentives, the policy won't work. There are two generalizations of economics. One is microeconomics, that looks at more individual aspects of the economy, such as businesses, individual businesses, and also macroeconomics, which looks at the economy as a whole and studies things that are very broad and big, like GDP and unemployment. One thing that is very important in economics is specialization of labor. So one thing is during the Industrial Revolution, people's lives started to improve drastically, and we had a surplus of food. Farming became, not everybody had to be farmers, so people could specialize in different things. And that is very specific on an individual level, where some people are accountants and they have specific jobs, but this is also something that can appear in countries where, and this chart is an example of production. It's called the production possibilities frontier, and is showing the quantity of planes and quantity of shoes that the United States versus China can produce. And by using this, you can calculate that, where you can trade and try to have the most beneficial trade based on how many shoes China can produce and things that they can specialize in, and then trade with each other to have the most benefits. So the production possibilities frontier is very useful because you are thinking about how you can be most efficient with your resources. The takeaway here is that economics can be applied in many different aspects of your life. And it's thinking about what is the opportunity cost of what you are doing in every given moment. Is there something better that you could be using with your time? And it can come to very tiny, seemingly unimportant decisions to big financial decisions in your life. The next person who will be presenting is Anya, and she will be talking about Joe Biden's infrastructure plan and the effects on the economy.
Hi, I'm Anya, and I'll be talking about Joe Biden's infrastructure plan. So recently, Kathy Nyack posted an article talking about Biden's proposed budget for infrastructure on the WEquil Evolutionomics Facebook channel. She talked about how the spending plan will provide for science funding and fighting climate change. The budget proposal will raise funding for research and development across nearly every major federal science agency, including increases to improve public health and battle racial injustices. In line with the 2.3 trillion infrastructure proposal released by Biden on March 31st, the budget puts a clear emphasis on applied research and development programs intended to make the United States healthier, cleaner, and more competitive. She then asks how the spending proposal combined with the pandemic will affect the economy, innovation, mental health, and climate. I decided to answer these questions. Number one, economy. It will positively impact the economy. Because of this bill, more people will get jobs doing things such as fixing highways, rebuilding bridges, and more. As a result, the people with new jobs will start pumping money into the economy. Then the economy will improve. Two, innovation. This funding will help new ideas for curing diseases, renewable energy sources, and many other things. Mental health. It will improve mental health greatly. It would make the United States healthier and cleaner with better jobs and healthcare, resulting in better mental health across the board. And lastly, climate. Using the $2.3 trillion American Jobs Plan, Biden plans on building an electric transmission system that moves cheap, clean electricity nationwide, modernizing power generation to deliver clean electricity, and plugging orphan oil and gas wells and cleaning up abandoned mines. In conclusion, this spending proposal will positively help the economy, innovation, mental health, and climate. If passed, the proposal will be a good thing for America.
Thank you, Anya. Now we can have our guest speaker share his thoughts on Anya's project. And can you also introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Ilya Rakovsky. I'm an economist. Thank you very much for presenting. So first, I have a question for Anya. So before, Sumi mentioned the idea of trade-offs and incentives, the core ideas of economics. So do you see any trade-offs in this plan? And what are they?
Could you repeat the question?
So you know how economics is based on trade-offs and incentives. So trade-off is you cannot have everything, right? You have to choose something that you really want, and gonna get it. So why? So if this plan is so good, can we have a $5 trillion plan or not?
So you're asking why we can't have more money in the plan?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's probably because they don't have unlimited money, and they have to have some money for other plans such as defense, medical, etc.
Good. So here we connected it to the idea of trade-offs. So you have limited amount of money, and you choose how to spend it, whether to do it on incentive, on infrastructure, on medicine, and so on, right? So what is a potential problem with this plan? Because you only said the good things about it. Do you see any problems with this plan or not?
Well, a possibility could be that, for example, maybe more people would not get jobs. Like they might not be good at fixing highways, rebuilding bridges, and the bridges would fall. And then that would cost more money in rebuilding the bridges again. And if when they cure the diseases, it could actually not be a good cure, and like damage someone's immune system. So there are like problems in it. I guess but I guess it would work in the end.
Okay, so the main problem is that they may not produce something of high quality, whether it's high quality road or high quality medicine to achieve the thing that you want to achieve, right? Okay. I just, the other question I want you to think about is the questions of incentives. It's a bit more complex than the question of trade-off. But basically, the basic idea is when government does something, how does it change your incentives? So if a government would give free money to everybody, how does it change incentive to work? Sumi, Anya, do you know?
Well, if they gave free money to everybody, money would lose its value.
Right. So money value. Also, people may choose not to work because they already have money from a government. So you need to think how people would react to any change. So how people would react to this plan in both good and bad way. How would they change their behavior as a result of this plan? Maybe if the government would build better roads, the people would drive more. That's the change of incentive of people after the result of this plan. Okay, I think we can move on. Sumi?
Yeah, well, also we other students here are also welcome to ask questions for the people who are presenting. So the next person who we have presenting is we have another Anya Rollison who has written an article about economics in our world. I think right now she's driving, so there may be a little bit.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm Anya Rollison and I'm 12 years old. I'm from North Carolina, Havelock. I am presenting on economics in our world and a few key points. My first key point is, well, what is economics? Economics is a social science concerned with manufacturing, distribution, and production and consumption of goods. Economics is more than just numbers. Here are 7 basic concepts of economics: scarcity, transferability, forms of wealth, individual wealth, social wealth, national or real wealth, and international wealth. Here are a few career paths for economic graduates: financial risk analyst, data analyst, financial planner, accountant, economic researcher, financial consultant, and an investment analyst. So here is one of the biggest questions I found myself asking when I was doing research for this paper is, how do I use it in my life? How can I apply it to me? Now, a very, very basic point of economics is going to be needs and wants. Now, let's say I'm at the store and I want something, but I also might need something. So am I going to choose that need? Is that need going to overpower my want, or is it going to be vice versa? So in doing this, I found it depends on what the need is, because we have almost unlimited wants, but we don't have unlimited resources, which creates very scarce resources. Now, in conclusion, what I have found is that economics we can apply to our everyday lives as an individual. And it is a very powerful lesson to be learned, and there are unlimited ways of explaining how we can use economics, but we can apply it in our everyday lives, in our work, in our school, and everything.
Yeah, that was great. Does our guest speaker have any comments for Anya?
Right. So it would be great if you can explain in your own words, like, what do you mean? For example, you have this 7 different ways to describe economics, right? And 5 of them use the word wealth. But could you just like tell us, what do they actually mean? What does 1 mean, 2 mean, and so on? Because it's hard to understand. What is international wealth? We don't know.
Okay, so I'm going to start probably at the top and just do a couple. So the first one is scarcity, which means we don't have enough resources to fulfill our wants, like Sume mentioned and I mentioned in our things. So the next one I want to do is international wealth, like you did. International wealth, how when I'm doing research on that piece, what I thought it meant in my own personal thing is that it means the wealth of, I feel like it means the wealth of our overall like country, kind of. It's very hard for me to explain in my own words. I didn't go super in depth into all of the concepts.
Right. So here goes my main point. So we try to present this information of economics in a way we can all understand, like an easy way, how like other kids can understand it, even if you don't know what international wealth is. We just try to find like simple words for it. And the other question I have, you said about needs and wants, right? What is the difference between them?
So let's say, let me put it this way. So I need water almost every day to survive. And I need food, but I might not need sparkling water, or I might not need like lobster, but I might want those things. So a need can be very basic, but a want can be more elaborate and something you might not need to survive.
Okay, last follow-up question. Who decides whether something is your want or your need? Is this you? Is this your parents? Who gets the decision power? Because some kids may say, I really need this lemonade to survive.
So I feel like in my life as a homeschooler, I get to define my needs mostly. For the most part, I get to decide what I need and I get to decide what I need and like I want. Like I might say, hey, I need a drink of water, and that's a need, or something like that. It might not be the same for everyone, but it's my decision. As a human being, we have decisions, and it's not always going to be whatever the other person says. It's not going to be the government dictating what our need is, what our want is.
Okay. Thank you.
The next person presenting is Shirag, and he made a video which you can check out on the WEquil YouTube channel. I also linked an article in the description of this of the live stream that has all the projects, which you can check out there. And so this is his summary of the video that he created.
Okay, hey everyone, I'm Shrod. I'm 16 and I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina. And what I did was I looked at the minimum wage. So basically what's going on right now is that a lot of people are saying that the minimum wage should be increased. This happened over a long period of time. Like the minimum wage came into existence in 1938 when Franklin Roosevelt signed into law the Fair Labor Standards Act, which established like a quarter an hour for like the minimum wage. And it's been constant ever since 2007 when it was bumped up to $7.25. And so that's where people want to improve on it, I guess, and increase it to $15 an hour. So what I did was I looked at how a minimum wage would impact both workers and employers. Those were the two main groups I looked at. So for workers, a $15 minimum wage would obviously improve their income and it would give them more spending power, which could boost aggregate demand in the economy, and that would lead to lower unemployment and things like that. But also, it would harm employers, not as much as people think they would, I think, but it would definitely harm them, in which they would not be able to hire people who would be willing to work for a lower wage. So that's one downside of it. So now I want to go over my solution, like a proposed solution at least. And what I would do is raise the minimum wage to an amount that's less than $15 an hour, maybe around $12 or $13 an hour. But I would also expand federal welfare programs like the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program that could help low-income workers. And by doing that, I think we could find like a compromise solution between helping workers and not harming employers too much. And yeah, that's what I have.
Yeah. Ilya, do you want to comment on that?
Right. So you said that higher minimum wage does not lead to lower employment. Is this correct?
Sort of, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So why it will not happen? Because if I imagine that if workers become more expensive, then I would maybe hire less workers and use more robots, for example.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like if someone is
So,
willing
so then the high minimum wage would increase unemployment, right?
yeah.
Okay. But you say that this effect is very small, right? That it's not.
I think so.
So why do you think it's small?
Because I think I looked at some studies that were done, and it turns out that a higher minimum wage, it wouldn't impact the unemployment rate as much as people would think it would. Like a lot of businesses right now are increasing the wage to try to find workers, and it's not overly harming the economy too much. So I think we could like apply that to like government wages, like a government set wage.
Okay, so if raising minimum wage is a good thing, why stop at 13? Why not go to 20?
Well, because if we go to 20, then it would probably be there. It would probably have a bigger effect on unemployment because a lot of people, like an employer wouldn't be able to pay as many people at $20 an hour than they would at 13 or 15.
And also you mentioned that a lot of employers are already raising the wage past $20, $13, right? So is it possible that the small effect of change of minimum wage would just not matter, whether in good or bad way?
It's possible, but I think it does have an effect on unemployment and things like that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So the last person who will be presenting is Isla, and she will be talking about her new startup, Blended Mix, and how parents can use it to teach their kids about economics.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isla, and I am 9 years old. And today I will be talking about Blended Mix. For Blended Mix, what really is Blended Mix? Well, Blended Mix is where you can build your perfect smoothie. And by that, I mean you can figure out what you want to put in your smoothie, what and how much you want to put in your smoothie. And I am me and my business partner Corey are building an app to where you can order your smoothie and it will be delivered right to your door every Sunday morning. So with blended mix, it's really cool because where I am actually planning to try to franchise it with my business partner Corey, and Corey is trying to do the same thing that I'm doing in Florida. So so that is really cool because with franchising blend and mix, you can have it all around the world, and with blend and mix, with me, I can only deliver it to my neighborhood. So if you have it all around, if you franchise it, then it can be in many different places, and I think that's one of the really cool things about franchising different kinds of startups. Another thing is that blended mix is actually been a great opportunity for me, and I think it will be for other kids to learn about economics and how to make money. For economics, one example is that I learned about revenue minus cost equals profit. My revenue is how much money I will make from my customers. My cost is the cost of the fruits in the blender and other kinds of ingredients, and my profit, like other startups, is how much money I actually made. So for conclusion, I really enjoyed sharing about blend and mix, and like I said, this is a great opportunity for kids to learn about different things, about to learn by doing. And yeah, I think Sume is going to start question answer session.
Yeah, so we are also taking questions from Facebook. So if anyone has any questions that they would like us to elaborate on, then they're welcome to ask those on Facebook. So
Can you see everybody?
I think so.
Not exactly in Taken Me.
Yeah, let's
Okay, let's get it all in here.
There you go.
Okay, cool. So before we jump into all the question answers, I wanted to take a moment to introduce our friend Ilya
More depth.
in more depth, because he's a deep guy and it's worth it. Hey Ilya, can we see you? Do we have, is his camera on? Do we need to add him?
It was on a few seconds.
Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. Hey, so we've known Ilya. He's been a family friend for 12 years now. And when I said, hey, we've got an opportunity for you to talk about economics with a bunch of our students that are into this too. And so it took him about 5 seconds to say yes. He's an incredible guy. So not only is he very accomplished in his field, but he has this lifelong learner mentality that we're trying to help our young people to embody. So, the work that he's done has, besides dozens of publications, and he manages a team and is just very accomplished, but he also he's always sharing new papers and books and pushing himself to learn new things. So not only is he accomplished as an economist, but he's also, in my view, a leading mind in machine learning technology. So my wife and I, we recently published a chapter in a book on the implications of machine learning in the finance industry. But before I published it, I made sure I ran this by Ilya. And so he reviewed that and shared all kinds of comments and told me all the reasons why I was wrong to say X, Y, and Z, so I could learn more and iterate and improve. So I hope that's a warm enough introduction for you, Ilya, but perhaps before we get into some of these questions, you could talk to us more about what you do and insights so that our young people can learn more directly from experts in the field.
All right, thank you. So I used to be economist for a while. Now I'm doing more machine learning. And before, let me give you 2 minutes of explanation how I see economics. So Sumi mentioned the 2 key concepts of trade-off and incentive. So economics is about making decisions under scarcity. When you have limited resources and you try to figure out how to distribute it. And almost everything of importance is limited. You have limited time, limited money, limited space in your stomach. So basically, you choose how much you should work. You choose on what you're going to spend your money, and even how many donuts you're going to eat, or whether you're going to eat a donut or a piece of cheese because you have a limited space in your stomach. So whenever you face a scarcity, you need to make a decision under scarcity. Economics will help you. Second idea is incentives matter. It's basically people would do what they feel is valuable for them. And sometimes it doesn't matter. They may not do the right thing, but if they feel something is valuable, they will do it. There was a classical example of that from 18th century England. So in England, they used to send prisoners on ships to Australia. And they had a problem of a lot of prisoners died on a passage because they were not treated well. So why did it happen? Because the captains of the ships were paid in London when they put so many people on their ship. And then whoever survived reached Australia. So when England changed the system of payment from paying people in London to paying people in Australia and paying for each alive prisoner who reached Australia, the captains totally changed how they treat their prisoners, because now the survival of prisoners was very valuable for them. And this change of incentives changed their behavior. Before that, a lot of priests and other people tried to shame them into better treating their prisoners, but it was no avail because their greed was stronger than their moral sense. But when you change economic mechanism and you change people incentives, then even people who are not very good morally can do good things and can do something valuable for society. So this is a key idea of how we can use economics to design markets, to design rules, so that even people who are not good can do good things. Take greed, for example. Greed is considered a vice by many people, but it's a cornerstone of economic progress, people wanting to be rich. So the same person who is a greedy, under some circumstances, he can become a businessman. Under other circumstances, he can become a robber. And that's how you structure incentives of this person, whether you allow people to become rich or not, whether the laws are enforced or not. This is how incentives are changed, and that's how people would make their choices. Next, I want to talk about.
Well, let me just say, that's a really good example. In terms of incentives, it's like, okay, so you'd think, I think that's a great example in part because it shows the importance of incentives versus what people might say are like, moral platitudes, right? So it's like, what's really driving behavior? I think one of the discussions you'll hear in public policy a lot is that, we need, corporates to be good citizens too, and they need to just make the right decisions and help everybody. And it's like, okay, well, you can say that, but if one ends up taking an action that disadvantages them in the marketplace because they're trying to do the right thing, then they may not be able to survive as a business if it's competitive and other people aren't doing it. So when you think about public policy, it's important to look at the impacts of those incentives on behavior, and that's getting into something that I do professionally. So it's very complicated. So I appreciate that example.
Okay, thank you. So a little bit about my work. So for a while I was an economist and I study a problem of food deserts. Basically, food deserts are the areas where there are no good supermarkets, or supermarkets do not sell fresh fruits and vegetables, which I'm sure kids are a fan of. So the idea was, why does it happen? Is it the problem of demand? People who live there don't want fruits and vegetables, or it's a problem of supply that supermarkets for them it's too expensive or so too unprofitable to sell fruits and vegetables. So we tried to tackle this issue, and for that we looked at the people who shopped in the different supermarkets. So maybe they lived in a food desert area where there are no good supermarkets. So some of the products they purchased close to home. For other products, they would drive 20 miles away in an area where there are fruits and vegetables available. And we can see the difference in their purchases. And if they would choose to buy fruits and vegetables far away from home when they're available, that's a signal that the problem is driven by supply, by the stores that do not offer fresh fruits and vegetables. But if they buy the same food that they buy at home, then the problem is a demand, and it cannot be solved by changing the incentives to supermarkets. So in the end, we found that the main problem is consumer preferences. That's the main cause of what's going on. So next, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between economics and machine learning. So economics, we try to understand why things happening. We try to understand the incentives, how people make choices, what is the right price, and why is it, what is the supply, what is the demand for a particular product. So we want to really understand why things are going on. And it's very intellectually stimulating. It's really interesting to look at. The problem is sometimes things are just too complex for us to understand. For example, if you have a supermarket with 10,000 products and you need to set prices for each of them, if you look at each product separately, it's a really, really hard problem to optimize it all. So here comes machine learning. Machine learning is just a prediction of what should you do without sometimes understanding why. You're not going to model supply, demand, people's incentives, and all those things. You're going to say, okay, to maximize profits, you need to charge this price because historically that's what worked. And it can aggregate a lot of data to give you this result. Now, it's good and bad things about it. The good thing is that you can solve really complex problem where a human brain cannot look at 10,000 products at the same time. The bad thing is you don't have explanation why. So you cannot explain to your friend why did you decide to charge $5 for this product, because just your machine learning model told you so, but you don't have a good explanation as an economist would. And second problem, a lot of machine learning models, because they rely on a past experience and whatever worked in the past, they tend to recreate. They are not very good adapt for a change, to creating new things, because ultimately they rely on the past data and past pattern and success that worked before. So there are roughly 3 types of machine learning. One is that we call supervised learning. That's, for example, in Facebook, when you have a picture and it says a cat there, and Facebook says, this is a cat picture. Because Facebook was trained, this machine learning model was trained on many millions of cat pictures to recognize as a cat picture. And for this to work, you need to have a data on cat pictures, and you need to tell the computer what they want to do. So I want to recognize a cat in the picture. That's a very specified problem. A second case of machine learning is when you don't know what you're looking for a cat. You don't know what you're looking for. You look at the pictures and you give this picture to the computer and you ask a question. Well, help me to sort them. I don't really know what I'm looking for, but just find similar pictures and group them together. And the computer would say, okay, they would group cats, dogs, and people separately, but it wouldn't tell you that these are cats or dogs because the computer doesn't know it. It just gives you similar pictures grouped together. And then you as a human have to label it because the computer doesn't understand what it is. It just groups them based on similarity. And then final third type of machine learning, it's reinforcement learning that doesn't require any data. When you specify a good, well-specified problem like a game of chess, when you have rules and it's easy, you know how to win, you know how to lose. So computers can play with each other and learn chess gradually, and then gives you a good strategy. And that's actually the most innovative type of machine learning, because here the computer is not based on past experience and like databases of past games, but it can actually learn from itself and gives humans new strategies. But the problem with this approach is that a lot of problems are not so well defined as a game of chess. Like you cannot have a price of in a supermarket. It's not as easily defined as a game of chess, so you cannot solve it this way. But that's one of the more powerful tools. So that's all.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I feel like one of the things, oh yeah, great job. Machine learning in 5 minutes. One of the sections of the paper that my wife and I wrote that Ilya helped with talked about the economics of machine learning. And so I want to add a little bit of that because of the relevance of the topic today. So, you know, how is machine learning relevant to economics? And I think it actually relates most to Chirag's paper and talking about the minimum wage, where we're essentially creating models that are powerful enough that they can start to make a lot of automated decisions and also put these into robots so that we can replace jobs. This is something that I think a lot of adults are concerned about, and I think increasingly, you know, more astutely observing kids are seeing the same kinds of things where it's like, look, technology like machine learning is replacing a lot of jobs, right? And so, you know, it begs the question, well, is this potentially having some impact on the wage disparities that we are seeing? So I don't know, do you want to comment on that, Ilya? Do you see any, or Chirag, does that make sense to you? What do you think, Chirag?
Well, I'm not very experienced with machine learning and things like that, but I think it's pretty interesting how we can get like an artificial intelligence to make decisions that we find it too hard to. So I think that's pretty interesting.
I think another comment generally about technology that relates to the same issue of income disparities that's driving a lot of this discussion and kind of pushing a policy agenda is just broadly technologies like, you know, Isla's been working on this Flutter app where she can come up with an idea and has been socializing it within WEquil School about, well, what if we can use this technology to make it extremely cost effective for people to actually sell their perfect smoothie, to discover it through an iterative process in the same way that we build our projects and are also scaling the school, but do that in a way that allows people to incrementally find that perfect blend over the course of maybe like a month, you know, 4 weeks of like a little bit less banana, a little bit, how about I try skim milk instead of 2%, right? And then she's like, well, what if we franchise this, right? What if we made this app available to WEquil School families across the country, and they could then use this as a tool for their kids to learn economics and make a little bit of money. So you're able to take technology and scale an idea at no cost. Well, that's, you know, could potentially be one of the driving forces that's creating this income disparity, because if you have those tools and you have that kind of mindset and you're able to leverage that, all of a sudden you can make a lot more money. And now folks that are working at the local smoothie shop, because I'm assuming Isla's going to be wildly successful with this, in part because of help from her partner, Corey, that this could put people that are at the lower income spectrum in trouble because they don't sell the perfect smoothie. They sell their own default smoothies, right? But I don't know, any thoughts from anybody on that?
Well, we do start out with 5 default smoothies, but then you can iterate them and to the smoothie that you want.
Sure. What?
Question about your smoothie business. How much were you planning to like charge for the smoothies? It sounds really interesting.
Well, I think we're gonna have different sizes of smoothies, right? So we're gonna have different sizes. So I'm gonna just have a price for each size. So you can just put in whatever you want, but if you put more and more, it's gonna go to the next size. And if you take less out, if you take more fruits out or something, then it will go to the smaller size. So I think I'm just gonna like socialize a few prices for that.
But you're actually pricing by ingredient.
Yeah.
So not only is it the perfect smoothie in terms of taste, but we're talking about economics and costs and benefits.
Mhm.
Well, if you really love, and we're sourcing the food from like whole foods and organic foods because it's very health focused. Isla's been very health focused with like all the stuff that she's been doing, or a lot of it. So if you love those blueberry smoothies, well, that's one of the more expensive ingredients. So it's not only perfect in terms of taste, yeah, but it's also, if you're pricing it so that you have a set margin of say 20% above the cost of all the ingredients, then your perfect smoothie is also going to be the one that fits the right size for you, where it's maximizing utility, per dollar.
So what is the main problem with the current smoothies that are offered in the market?
It's a good question. Isla, go. Or anybody.
Yeah, well, it's not customizable. And I think one thing that we're talking about is many things in the economy will start to become more customizable. One reason is 3D printing is making that a lot more easy in terms of hardware, because it's just really easy to just change the design and reprint something according to what someone wants. So I think there's just going to be more demand for personalized products, and that's exactly what I was trying to provide.
They're not personalized.
Yeah.
I want my perfect smoothie. It's not going to be the same as Anya's perfect smoothie. So I think that's a broader trend. That's also something that machine learning helps with, right? So machine learning is personalizing ads. It's personalizing friend recommendations. It's personalizing, we're using machine learning models right now to also personalize certain types of goods that people want, where they can fit them perfectly to their body. So machine learning models are helping to identify the right size shoe insert to help your foot perfectly fit inside of your shoe. So that's using machine learning. It's also using 3D printing. It's also personalizing it to the individual, and it can be created by anybody and shipped across the world at a super low cost, right? So it's like, good luck trying to study just one thing. It's all connected. It's coming in from all angles. Maybe that's something you could comment on, Ilya, in terms of like, because as an economist, I feel like, and Anya, you can speak to this too, both Anya's, in terms of like the breadth of economics. I mean, you're studying, there's all these different definitions. Anya with 1A or 2A's had one definition, but there's a bunch of definitions. Some are so broad, it's just like the study of optimal decision making. Well, that's like most everything, So Ilya, do you want to comment a little bit on that, like how these young people can be thinking about how to use economics, because it's so broad?
Well, I think the key question is, in any situation, to understand incentives of people you're dealing with. So you need to think why people behave in a certain way. What do they want to get? What do they want to maximize? And that would help you understand the situation much better and how to behave, so you would not be surprised by the behavior of other people, because you try to understand what do they actually trying to achieve, and it's very different from maybe what you want to achieve.
Understanding behavior. Yeah, I'd say that's something that we can apply no matter how old we are or whatever we do. We do have a few questions. Should we get to the questions for our students?
Sure.
And then we can try to wrap up after that.
Okay, so Anya Rollison, can you provide more examples of how you use economics in your life?
Yes. So by let's say when we went down to Florida for something down there, I was looking at gas prices, and I had noticed how different in each state different gas prices are going to be. And that is because of inflation, which is also going to be part of economics. Also, gas is a resource that is scarce. It is scarcity. So that is another example. Yeah.
Yeah. So Anya, the other Anya, in the context of America's growing national debt, how is Biden's how is Biden's plan a trade-off? Also, I was very impressed by your presentation.
I don't really understand the question.
Go ahead. Try to say it again. I'll jump in.
In the context of America's growing national debt, how is Biden's plan a trade-off?
So I think this gets to Ilya's point earlier about how economics, like if there's an obvious thing that we can do that makes everybody better off, this gets to a concept called Pareto Efficiency that Anya Rollison, you may want to add that to your list of key terms. Pareto efficient being that there's no way that we could improve something without also improve outcomes for one group without reducing outcomes for another group. And so generally it's hard to find opportunities that you can receive a higher level of Pareto efficiency. So you know, when you're looking at public policy, I think that the question would be for Biden's plan, like what's the downside? And you mentioned earlier that there was debt and potential implications for the currency. So that was one good example that Anya already gave, I think. Your dad had a point. Is he still there? I saw him. Hey, Kanal, where'd you go? All right. Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
So I saw your comment. So you had a comment for Ilya, but I was hoping maybe you could try to take that question and make it a question for our students too, about like the right. Well, go ahead and phrase it in your own words.
Sure. Yeah, so maybe I'll just go with the trade-off first, right? So I think one of the other trade-offs, Anya, that you can potentially think of is how do we generate that revenue, right? Does it mean the taxes go up, or do we keep printing money, and does that mean devaluation of the currency, right? So that those are the trade-offs you can be thinking.
Yeah, you could tax stability.
All right. So the other, so the question for Ilya, and I think broadly for all the students, right, is there's generally the belief, and which is right in many cases, that if you just give free money to everyone, it creates a disincentive for people to do work, right? However, on different studies with specific dollar amounts, not really large dollar amounts, they did find that the reverse was true, where you provide like $500 that in fact increased employment, also had a lot of the people pay down their debt, improved their emotional well-being, so forth. So is there a balance between like providing a form of a universal basic income, and if so, what would that look like? Would it be a specific number, or how would anybody structure it, if that even makes sense as a public policy?
Yeah, so the Kunal question, it's a very complex issue. We don't know, actually. I mean, the evidence is scarce. There are a few small experiments. But but we don't know if you have large fraction of population on the support. We don't know what would happen in the next generation, what happened to the standards of work ethics or something like that. So the broad issue, we don't know. The economic theory says that probably people would work less, because that's tended to be the issue with wealth effect. When people had a windfall of money, maybe they won a lottery or something, people would work less as a result of this windfall. But it's hard for us to predict what would happen if universal basic income is introduced widely.
Any other thoughts from our students? I know Shirag, he's coming to us. He's pretty new to our group, 16 years old. But when I first met him, he said, you know, I just love learning about economics and doing research. And I was like, well, you should join WEquil School. So I know you think about this stuff a lot and you're reading the paper. What have you heard of universal basic income? And do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I've heard of it, specifically from that one guy who ran on it in the presidential campaign. He crashed and burned pretty early, so.
What's his name?
Yang, I think, Andrew Yang.
Andrew Yang, yeah. Okay, all right, go ahead.
He also ran in the New York mayoral primary. He also lost there, but you know, that's okay. But anyways, I don't know how we would implement universal basic income, because it just, and like the way he tried to pay for it was he tried to get rid of all these welfare programs. So instead of getting like tax credits and food stamps and stuff like that, you just receive money for 1 month, like a salary. So it seems pretty unfeasible to me.
Well, it's a thorny issue, and you know, we only got like 3 more minutes before we're gonna have to wrap up here. I think one thing's for sure, we're gonna have another economics demo day without waiting too long, because it's one of my first loves after my wife and kids, and it just seems so critically important for no matter what you're gonna do. Maybe we have like one more question. We have actually Antigone. Do you have any questions or thoughts you want to share with anybody?
I think there's the last. This question is for Shirag. Is why did you choose $12 to $13 as the ideal minimum wage?
Okay, great. And then we'll have Antigone join us next time, and she'll be coming in hard with a bunch of questions for you guys, make you stumble.
Well, $12 to $13 is, I feel like, a good way not to harm employers too much, because if you put it at like $15 or $20, you're gonna pay people more and you'll have less people working for you. But I think $12 to $13 combined with federal assistance programs could really help low-income workers without harming employers too much, and then they'd be able to find a job when they need to.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I think we're going to wrap up here. Let me just say that I really appreciate thoughts from everybody today. This was great. I think we had some really hard-hitting and some very thoughtful demonstrations today. And thank you, Ilya, for coming by and sharing your wisdom on this. I know Ilya's just got so much to share. So if anybody wants to connect with Ilya, wants to find his LinkedIn profile information, we'll be able to put that up on our YouTube channel.
It's also on the WEquil School post for this.
Yeah, we'll add that. So if you want to check out some other research that Ilya's done, just an extremely thoughtful guy. So thank you very much, and thank you to the parents, so you can all and other parents sharing their thoughts. Listening and learning from adults and giving them access to professionals and collaborating with parents the way that Anya did today, with the research with her mom on Joe Biden. Like, that was so cool. I was just like, hey, how about this discussion you and your mom are having on rethinking education? Let's share it with the world. So I appreciate you stepping up and making that happen. So thank you, everybody, for being a part of this, and looking forward to seeing more demonstrations.
Bye.